Good morning, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jay Byers. I'm the CEO of the Greater Des Moines Partnership. Those of you who are not familiar with the partnership, we are the regional economic and community development organization serving central Iowa. We're currently doing economic development in 7 counties. We have 21 affiliate chambers of commerce, in which we have dual membership with, and so because of that, we now have more than 5,000 regional members. And so what that means is, as a metropolitan statistical area, we are only 91st in terms of population, but we are growing rapidly. We have grown about 20% in the last decade, and a lot of that has to do with diversity and inclusion. But despite the fact we're only 91st in terms of population as a region, we have the 4th largest chamber of commerce in the entire country. So give yourselves a big round of applause for that. I want to thank all of you again for taking the time to come today. And I know you all have busy schedules and coming up on the holiday seasons that everybody has a lot to do, so we really appreciate you taking the time to be here. I also want to thank our lead staff on this event, Nathan Ritz and Mary Bontrager. They do a great job in heading up our diversity and inclusion efforts. A number of other partnership staff members are here today. I know Jean Meyer is here, Cindy Fisher, Meg Fitz is here, and Molly Miller, and a number of others. So let's give the partnership staff a big round of applause. I also want to thank our sponsors for today, Wells Fargo and Veridian Credit Union. We really appreciate that. We also have strong support today from Nationwide, Central Iowa Society for Human Resource Management, and the Evelyn K. Davis Center for Working Families. So let's give all of them a big round of applause. We've got a great lineup of speakers who you're going to be hearing from, both in terms of keynotes and breakouts. So again, thank you to Sandy Harris with Sodexo, Rob Dillard, Iowa Public Radio, Polk County Supervisor Bob Brownell, former West Des Moines Superintendent Tom Narek, Chris Schecklinger with Nationwide, the Des Moines School Board member Tariq Caldwell Johnson, and Liz Buck with United Way of Central Iowa. A great lineup. Let's give all of them a big round of applause. I also want to thank the Partnership's Diversity and Inclusion Council, which we rely on heavily, and I know a number of them are here. So if you're currently on the Diversity and Inclusion Council or have ever served on that council, please stand up so we can recognize you. With the demographic changes that we continue to see here in Central Iowa and all across the country, it's no secret that why focusing on diversity and inclusion strategies is critically important to the future success of the Central Iowa business community. We know that focusing on diversity and inclusion in the workplace creates a number of key business advantages. Diversity and inclusion increases productivity. Diversity and inclusion brings in diverse and different talents working together toward a common goal using different sets of skills, and ignites their loyalty and increases their retention and productivity. Diversity and inclusion increases innovation, creativity, and problem solving. With so many different and diverse minds coming together, many more solutions will arise as every individual brings in their way of thinking, operating, and solving problems and decision making. Diversity and inclusion attracts and retains talent that adds to a competitive edge to any organization or business. Feeling included and appreciated increases loyalty and feeling of belonging. Increasing language skill pools propels organizations forward to increase a diverse customer base and better compete in the global marketplace. Diversity and inclusion helps to build synergy in teams and enhances communication skills that bring in new attitudes and possesses that profit and processes that profit the entire team. In applying the proper diversity and inclusion management strategies, not only saves money on litigation expenses, that can be generated by discrimination lawsuits, but we all know it is the right thing to do for businesses. And finally, diversity and inclusion increases market share and creates a satisfied, diverse customer base by relating to people from a variety of different backgrounds. And as a community, it is more important than ever that we continue to focus on diversity and inclusion. Creating a more welcoming place helps us attract top global talent. It helps us increase our exports, and it helps us attract more foreign direct investment and international economic development projects. And those are the things that the partnership focuses on a daily basis. And on a personal note, diversity and inclusion has been a very important part of my family as well. Many of you may know that I have a daughter who has autism, and having experienced what that means in terms of schools and in terms of acceptance and what that's meant in terms of making us a stronger family and better parents, a lot of those things are important in the workforce as well. And so sometimes people don't think of disabilities as part of diversity and inclusion, but it is a big important part. So that's something that I carry with me every day. So thanks again for all of you who are here today. Thanks again for our sponsors, our speakers, and for everything you do to make Greater Des Moines even greater. We really appreciate it. And without further ado, I'd like to bring forward my colleague, Mary Bontrager. And Mary, thanks again to you and Nathan for all you've done to put this together.
Well, I too want to extend a welcome and a thank you to all of you in attendance today, to our sponsors, our presenters, and our special guest, Sandy Harris. I also want to extend a special thank you to Vince Lovan and Carla Carlson and the entire Sodexo local team for making it possible to have Sandy with us today, and thank you for being here today. Today's summit is another step in the long-standing history of Iowa, Greater Des Moines, and the partnership as leaders in creating a community that is welcoming to all. The purpose of the partnership, sorry, Nathan, I keep moving. Sorry about that. The purpose of the partnership's Diversity and Inclusion Council is to support and elevate a diverse economy through its education, promotion, and public awareness practices that will result in a community where all have the opportunity to live, learn, and thrive. So today, I want to first thank the Planning Committee who put on this wonderful summit today. Jackie Easley, Dick Reasons, Robin Jenkins, Angela Weekly, and Claudia Schabel. Could you all please stand? Thank you so much. And again, I want to thank Nathan for your great leadership. The partnership and Des Moines Business Publications have a long history of collaborating on numerous events, initiatives, and publications, but the one for which I am most proud is our partnership on the Inclusion magazine. With the leadership of Chris Maggard and Jeanette Larkin and many on the team at Business Publications, excuse me, we now have a beautiful publication to tell our story of inclusion through the voices and faces of our residents. Today, it is my great honor to unveil our newest edition of Inclusion. Nathan? You are the first to receive this publication, and they will be available on tables in the back of the room in the lobby as you leave the event today. And now it is my distinct honor to introduce Jackie Easley, chair of this planning committee. Jackie has been a valued leader of the partnership of our D&I Council, where she was a founding member of the council and has served in many leadership roles, including chair. Jackie's passion for the community and all of its residents has left many a mark on our community. Please welcome Jackie to the stage. Thank you, Jackie. And a small token of our appreciation.
Thank you so much. I love it when people say you're a founding member. It's a very polite way of saying you're a senior. You've been around a while. As we prepare for today's exciting dialogue, I'm reminded of these words from my shero, Dr. Maya Angelou. I note the obvious differences in the human family. The variety of our skin tones can confuse, bemuse, and delight. I've sailed upon 7 seas and stopped in every land, not yet one common man. I know 10,000 women called Jane and Mary Jane, but I've not seen any two who were the same. I've noted the obvious differences between each sort and type, but we are more alike, my friends, than we are unlike. And indeed, in this room today, I believe we are alike in our passion for embracing diversity and inclusion in the marketplace. I'm also confident that we all would affirm leveraging diversity and inclusion to support business development and strategic priorities. But I also wager that all of us would probably walk across the street and take a flight to Honolulu today if given the opportunity. Alas, we are more alike. However, one of us in this room has had a 25-year career focusing on creating diverse, inclusive, and high-performing work environments at 5 Fortune 500 companies. Currently, Sandy Harris is Vice President, Corporate Diversity Strategy and Internal Operations for Sodexo America. She oversees engagement, diversity learning and development, and Sodexo's 9 employee business resource groups, as well as the EEO and affirmative action and client consulting. She has served on numerous boards and community task force and was a founding member of the board of directors for Honoring Women Worldwide. On a personal note, while I was a student at Carleton College in Minnesota, I had the privilege of being introduced to a talented local vocal group from what we call the cities, and that's Minneapolis, St. Paul, called the Sounds of Blackness. Now, is there anyone in this audience who has been a member of a Grammy award-winning group? Sandy Harris, please join me in welcoming multi-talented and our Soul Grammy feat.
Thank you. Well, how about that? Good morning. Come on, you can do better than that. Good morning. All right, fantastic. Thank you for having me on this brisk and lovely morning. I actually spent 26 years in Minneapolis, so I'm kind of used to this. I'm just most recently coming back to the Washington, D.C. area where I've grown up in Silver Spring, Maryland. I've just been back about a year, so this is very familiar to me, and it's not at all uncomfortable. So kind of feel like I've come back home a little bit. Anyway, I'm very, very honored to be before you today to talk about Sodexo and our journey and the work we've been doing in the area of diversity and inclusion. And essentially the remarks I'll be making are really to ensure that you have a sense for what was the business case and what are the things that are going on in the world that are important and impact our ability to be successful as an organization as it relates to diversity and inclusion. As well, what are the key drivers that have contributed to our ability to be successful with our journey in diversity and inclusion. And that includes things like leadership and how do we engage middle manager in terms of involvement in the work and metrics, accountability, and all types of programming that we do. So those are the types of comments that I'll talk about. As well, I'll touch a little bit upon global. The front section will be really like what is going on in this space, because I think that is relevant to all of us. And as we are an organization that's really focused on service and team and things of that nature, diversity and inclusion is a critical success factor for us. And so I'll be talking quite a bit about what that looks like, how that works, all that good stuff. And I have my phone up here with the timer so that I can pay attention to the time, so I can leave some time available for us to chat on the back end. Sound good? All right, fantastic. Except that I am technologically challenged. No, I'm good. Okay. All right, so here we go. Okay, so a little bit about our story. Ah. So, how many of you are familiar with Sodexo? Oh, a lot of you, yay! I sometimes land in spaces where I ask that question and there's not a whole lot of hands that go up. And sometimes my colleague, who is the Vice President of Market Diversity, he will sometimes say, Sodexo is the largest company that you never knew. We're like the 18th largest company in the world. We're very large. So on the screen, you'll see a variety of facts about us. We're actually 420,000 employees around the globe, and 132 nationalities, 34,000 sites. In the U.S., we're about 125,000 employees, about 7,000 sites or so. To just give you perspective, we're in 80 countries, and we serve 75 million people a day. That's not small. And that's a lot of people, and that's a whole lot of different kind of people that we have to satisfy, and that we have to anticipate their needs and interests in order to be successful. So, that's us. And we do this work, our mission really is to improve the quality of daily life for all of those that we serve. And we do that through on-site services in our 8 client segments, and that includes our corporate, we work on corporate campuses, we work defense, essentially, we feed the Army. Justice is a little sensitive. In some countries, we actually work in prisons, with prisons. But we have very specific criteria around that. It has to be a democratic environment. It cannot be an organization or prison where there's death penalty involved. And we insist on them having inclusion programming as a part of the contract, just to ensure we have a respectful work environment for all concerned there. So that's a little different one. We also do remote sites. We are the only company that we know of that has operations on both the North and South Pole. Interesting, right? Healthcare, we work in the hospitals, senior living, both private and public hospitals, and then senior living, as you know, the population is aging. We have more and more assisted living facilities, healthcare facilities for seniors. That is a growing area. And as such, we're doing quite a bit of work there, and that's a growing segment of our work. Education, that would be K through 12 campuses. Sports and leisures, that's like Olympics and stadiums, things like that. So we do fun stuff. We work in fun places and with fun clients. Motivation services is a little bit different. We do that in a number of countries. Not much work in the U.S., but more in some of the European locations to help our clients improve quality of life around things like like gift cards. If you think about it that way, the benefits are gift cards, incentives and recognitions, public benefits for food and transportation and housing and things like that. Those are located more like in Brazil and Belgium, places like that, France, Czech Republic. But at the end of the day, our mission really is to ensure that we are improving the quality of life for all those that we serve. Well, it's hard to do that if we don't know what that means. And by the way, that looks different in India than it does in the United States, right? So those diverse perspectives, we have to be a reflection of the populations we're serving. That's the way we find ourselves able to innovate and bring offerings that are relevant to our clients and then to our customers. And clients, let me give you some language. Clients for us we're a guest in the companies that we serve in. Essentially, we land in campuses, we land in corporations, we land in hospitals, but those are our client locations, right? And so we are working on their behalf to create an environment that is embracing and productive and is healthy for their employees. And so, we have to really ensure that we understand what those unique needs and perspectives are. Many of our clients are global. Well, guess what? There's a cross-section of people coming through there. That means we have to be effective at addressing and serving those unique needs and interests. So that's a little bit about us in terms of the work that we do. Wrong direction. All right. So here's the headlines. Diversity and inclusion, we've been on a journey for 12 years or so now, and essentially Sodexo's brand is associated with the work we've done in diversity and inclusion. We've had quite a bit of success. So I'll talk to you a little bit about that. But diversity and inclusion is becoming a differentiator for us that's resulting in business growth. And the reason for that is because it allows us to address our customer needs in a much more direct way. We are now able to anticipate for them what some of their issues may be proactively and consult with them in that way to help them think through, oh, here's some things we can be thinking about beyond just food service, okay? So that does create a differentiation for us relative to our other competitors who frankly do not do the same level of this work at all. It's a key component of our strategy for the business, and it helps to brand us beyond food service, but more broadly as strategic partners. So a little bit about us more, the context and the challenges that we're faced with. We are large, as you can see. We're geographically dispersed. So if you think about it, 7,000 locations across the nation, 125,000 employees. That's a lot of people on the ground doing a lot of work every day. Guest and client sites. And the industry itself had been fairly male-dominated, very few women in leadership. The industry was really behind when it came to progressive activities and programming and things of that nature. And so, when we took on this journey, and I'll tell you our story in a bit, it was clear that there was lots of opportunity to do some great work. And we also have the challenge of making the case. It's easy to say, we've got to be a reflection of the populations we serve when you're talking about our customers. Our customers are the people that we directly impact, those 75 million people a day with our services. But the B2B, the business to business, different kind of conversation, right? So, we have to be able to talk about both, because at the end of the day, it's those customers that are doing the work in our client locations that are helping them to be productive. So we have to talk about both, and we have to do it effectively. Also, our company, just given the nature of the work we do, very small margins. We've had litigation challenges, and I'll tell you a story about that. And we have our global headquarters is in Paris, which is really nice. I've been once. I want to go again. But anyway, but it does create unique challenges, right? Because there's a whole, you talk about, oops, I just did something, didn't I? Oh, let's go back. I was worried that this was going to happen. As you can see, I have a number of things to share with you. Hold on, I'm going back. Apologies. All right. So, but the challenge is that with a French company, they have a different perspective, but we are so privileged to have a CEO that totally gets the work. In fact, you'll see how much of a champion he is when I talk about our International Senior Women's Organization. He actually was the sponsor of it in the first place. So I'll talk more about Michel a little bit later, but he's fantastic. And we would say that top-down commitment is critical to any success, and we'll talk more about that as we go along. So, this is what we call our organizational diversity maturity model. And that's a fancy way of saying that, any one organization, if you have a variety of sites and locations, or if you have a variety of divisions and or business units, can be in anywhere on this spectrum. I think of this as a spectrum of places that an organization can be on the journey. So level one is your compliance space. That is all about, okay, what are the regulations? Just tell me what the numbers are I got to hit. A compliance energy is, I want to meet the requirements. I'm not looking to do a lot above that, but it is important that we meet those requirements and that we have the things in place necessary to keep track of the populations and that we're meeting availabilities and things of that nature. And many organizations actually start their diversity journey there. It's not a right or wrong place, it's just a place. And that's the reality for some organizations. Level two is more about creating awareness. It's like, okay, once we understand, there's some benefits to this stuff called diversity and inclusion. We need to create awareness by understanding what's the unique business case for it, for our company, and for those that we're serving. Also mentoring, put on mentoring programs, your employee business resource groups or networks show up in the level 2 area, as well as education. What are the types of things that inform the behaviors you're looking to see in your workplace and coming through leadership, if you will. Level 3 integrated D&I management really is more about integrating diversity and inclusion types of elements into your HR systems and processes, into your sales process, into your business development. How is it showing up in the ways that we do what we do, beyond just the HR stuff? How does it show up in terms of the areas of focus? I mean, if we're thinking about menus, for instance, menus are a cultural thing, right? So if you are being aware of the demographics of your customer base in any given site, and you're really striving to satisfy that cross-section of people, then you need to be aware of what is that experience they're seeking. Not only what's the food, but how it's served. The more culturally competent we can be, the more we can have superior customer service. So it's things like that. How do we make sure that people are informed and we're thinking about those things? And how do we integrate some of what we do into our offers for our clients? Level 4, strategic D&I embedded globally, really is how do you lift it up, and how is programming starting to take shape across countries, across regions? How is that taken into consideration as you think about the systems and processes, the planning, the intentionality around how you are communicating, with whom, when, all that good stuff. And that would be things like, for us, we have an eye on 4 areas globally. Gender is one area. Disabilities, as was spoken to earlier, is another. The LGBT community is another, and also generational diversity, because those things play out in terms of how we are being successful in leveraging the full capacity of our workforce. At the end of the day, when I think about diversity and inclusion in my experience, it's really about harnessing the full power of human potential for optimal business results. And you can't do that without being open. You can't do that without understanding broadly those that we're serving and understanding our own selves as well. It's both and. What's our unique lens? What are others? Where do we meet in between in a way that help us be successful? And then level 5 is really inclusion for business breakthroughs. And I'll give you an example. We were recently, just last week, we were in Los Angeles. My team puts on what's called the Better Tomorrow Summit, and the Better Tomorrow plan at Sodexo really speaks to a series of commitments that our company has made to ensure that not only are we honoring and actively engaged in creating a diverse and inclusive work environment, but we are also working to operate sustainably, and we're also working with a key focus on health and wellness. And those are actually 3 key bodies of activity in our organization. And what we do at the summit then is we lift that up, those 3 thought platforms, and bring them into a conference. It's a day long, and we invite our clients in a local area. We were in Los Angeles at the time. And we bring our clients, we bring community leaders and our employees together to explore the intersection of these 3. That's what we mean when we start thinking about breakthrough types of things. How do we take this work and lift it up in ways that help us think in innovative and new and different ways? Any client, any of our units could be on this journey at any time. Okay, so, and there again, there's no right or wrong place to be, but recognizing where you are informs the types of things you would do to move forward. And what I would say is that, this is something, for instance, a level 1 activity would be on the ground in one of our locations where someone would be in an interview and ask the woman who is pregnant, so when are you doing? Is that going to are you going to be able to work? And those questions that you're not supposed to ask. Essentially, what that means, though, is that that person's uninformed. They don't understand the regulations, et cetera, and we've got to do a better job. So it's that type of thing. This is a little bit about our journey, and after the session, we will have a PDF available for you, so you don't have to worry about all the copious notes if you don't want to. But For us, this is a snapshot of our journey at Sodexo. In 2003, it really launched with a consent decree that we found ourselves faced with. We had a $80 million settlement based on some inequities with African Americans with respect to promotions. And that was a wake-up call, because it really wasn't anything that was intentional. It was just by default, that we weren't paying attention, and we had just been merged with Marriott, didn't realize that all these things were creating this. And it did, and it happened. But what I'm impressed with, I've worked in other companies that have had consent decrees, and they never talk about it. It's don't talk about it. And so Dex was like, yeah, it happened, and you know what? We made good on this. This was informative. This was, this is not something we're proud of, and this is not something we ever want to do again. And we are very intentional about that. And as such, that launched the work that we've had the opportunity to do. And so here is where we set up the council that is led by our CEO. I'll talk more about that. Our employee business resource groups were established. Our external relations efforts were put in place. We increased accountability in 2006 to 2008. You see that. I mean, we ensured that more accountability was spread through more of the leadership of the organization. And we actually established an office in France to do more global work at that time. So that was the first opportunity to really expand into the global sphere. It all started in the U.S. 2009, our senior women's leadership group was launched, and I'll tell you more about that shortly. And there was much greater focus placed on leadership pipeline. The whole notion of how do we ensure that women are at all levels of the organization with greater intentionality through our talent management practices. Much more formal infrastructure put in place to do that. 2012 through 2014, then, we were very fortunate to have earned the Catalyst Award that really acknowledged us. I'll talk more about that. And we really had begun then to, based on some of the successes we'd had, begin to put diversity and inclusion on the map when we talk with our clients, when we talked and we're seeking out business development opportunities. It became a part of what we talk about now when we're talking with clients, when we're talking with communities for partnership purposes, et cetera. And in 2015 and beyond, as we look ahead, we're looking to do more things like the Better Tomorrow Summit that I mentioned. We have a global transformation going on called Invent 2020, and we are weaving diversity and inclusion into what are the implications of these changes that we need to be taken into consideration? How are we getting ahead of that so that we bring people along the journey? What does the diversity structure look like to support the new global business model, et cetera? Those are becoming a part of what's next. Sodexo has 10 key elements for culture change, and I'm not going to go through each and every one of them, but essentially, if you look to the right of the screen, it's really summarized by 3 areas of focus: top down, middle out, and bottom up. Our integrated diversity strategy was and is focused on these elements, but what differentiates us is that we're very intentional at focusing on these elements and then measuring success related to them in terms of how the system is changing. Top down just speaks to senior leadership commitment. I'll give you some specific examples. Middle out speaks to how do we ensure we have the middle layer of leadership engaged and involved and informed and educated. It's our middle level that really creates the weather, right? Yeah, if you see heads going, yeah. Because sometimes I've been in some organizations where we have very strong senior engagement and you have excitement down in the grassroots, but the middle level is not quite fully in there yet. Can anybody relate to that? Yeah, and so, trying to figure out what do we do to really engage and enroll our mid-level leadership on the journey so that they are creating that diverse and inclusive environment for us. And bottom up really speaks to our grassroots environments, grassroots efforts, the lower level councils, our employee business resource group activities that really touches more and more of our employees. So, business rationale, drive strategy. We think about the D&I work that we do in terms of our strategy, in terms of the workforce, just ensuring we have a cross-section of representation, but also the workplace and the marketplace. And when we think about the workplace, we're thinking about how do we ensure that inclusive environment allows us to attract, retain, develop, and advance talent at all levels of the organization. How do we ensure we have an engaged cross-section of employees serving our customers and clients? And how do we ensure that we have managers who have the skills and capabilities and knowledge necessary to lead that diverse cross-section? That just doesn't come natural. That's something that you have to be on purpose about. And then as far as the marketplace is concerned, how do we ensure that, we are understanding the unique needs and interests of our clients and customers? And how do we leverage D&I to get access? I mean, how are we helping our clients to understand more about what's possible for them in the space of diversity and inclusion, how we can bring some things to the table for them differently than they might have from others, and explore new business opportunities. For us, what has been very helpful is that we have had opportunities, because of the success we've had on the journey, to meet with C-suite people in our client locations. And that doesn't always happen in our normal business development efforts. And so that's been extremely informative, and it's helpful to always have multiple contact points in clients. It's always helpful to be connected at the very top. And how do we continue to leverage diversity and inclusion thought leadership to strengthen our brand? As we've found, that has been very helpful. So, the business case. What I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to come through these slides fairly quickly, is like the environmental scan. What are the things going on in the system that are probably relevant for you as they are for us? But that inform why this is important. And these are the topics or the data points that we share with our leadership to keep them real in terms of what the opportunities are. There's a lot of stuff changing out there, right? Demographics, we heard about that earlier. I'm going to speak to some of those things right now and just share with you what are the things that have been important for us to understand as we continue to focus our efforts. So some of the key workforce trends. As you know, there's large numbers of women and minorities in the workplace, and that's increasing. The workplace is increasingly diverse. So by 2020, 81% of new entrants are projected to be women and people of color or minorities entering the workplace in the United States. That's big. We need to look at our aging society. What does that mean? More and more people are intending to stay in place. But may not want to work full-time. How are we creating flexible work arrangements to ensure that we are harnessing the power and leveraging that knowledge and experience appropriately? Continuing to lead and grow our younger generations. How do we ensure that those entering the workforce are onboarded properly, and that the generations are working effectively across to ensure that we're meeting our client and customer needs and innovating properly? How are we leveraging all of it? How are we taking all of that knowledge and wisdom and creating more innovative solutions? 78% of LGBT population would prefer to work in organizations that are friendly to their community. So how are we showing up as such? Is your organization doing that or not? We're making a very strong attempt to get there. The 2010 census has noted, now this, speaking of disabilities is like the largest minority group. Did you realize that? And so it's a critical thing. I mean, there are 56.7 million people have a disability in the United States. That's a big number. 18.7% of them have a severe disability. 12.6% of them need specific assistance and things of that nature. So this is we are realizing and putting more effort now in our efforts around disability. I like to call it we're temporarily abled, because things change, right? And I had an accident and ended up not being able to use my arm and shoulder for a while, and I had a wake-up call to what's the reality for individuals with disabilities, just to open a door. And so those types of things are real realities that we have to be mindful of. So we have a variety of things at play. That prior slide, this captures that in a nutshell. Ethnic diversity is changing. We've got populations that are just shifting. So the workplace is going to be fundamentally different in the next several years. Generational diversity, we have to figure out how to transfer knowledge to the incoming populations, and we have to be ready to really leverage the new wisdom coming in while honoring the wisdom that exists and in place. And gender diversity is a big deal. There's a lot going on in that space with respect to men leaving the labor force, but women staying. And, when we start thinking about education, there's more women coming out with degrees now than there are men. And so that means just in terms of talent that's available, it's different. Literally, who's going to be available to do work is looking quite different. So when it comes to women, women are 40% of the global workforce, 50% of the world's population, 60% of the college graduates coming out, and participate in 70% of the purchasing decisions. Going to be important to pay attention to what the women think, huh? Yeah, it's the all of it. It's the all of it. We can't take for granted any, and that's the importance of thinking in an inclusive manner. It's like, what is the mix? No part of the mix is not important, but recognizing what the mix is, what's coming, it's going to be pretty important. Likewise, on the ethnic front, there's a lot of change happening too. So if you look from 2000 to 2050, that 50-year window, these were the projected changes in terms of just the numbers of individuals, population growth in the United States. Huge differences, huge. It's showing up in our schools right now. Yes? Yeah, okay. When I lived in Minneapolis, there were school systems that had 25 different languages going on? In Minneapolis! Who knew? So that was a wake-up call, but it was a challenge. It was a challenge up there. I suspect that we may have some similar challenges here. I think our neighbors very much alike, yes? And with the increase in numbers of populations, you also have the increase in purchasing power. And money talks, right? So organizations are beginning to pay attention and seeing what's coming and beginning to recognize that this is something we've got to get integrated into our space now so that we're ready when it gets there. Because if we start acting then, it's too late. It's just too late. Changing demographics on the Hispanic front. Our Hispanic brothers and sisters are really growing, and the projections for this population of our demographics is really off the chart big. And we've got to recognize that there's unique opportunities for us to ensure we have a workplace, and frankly at Sodexo we have opportunities to really harness the power of the Latino voice at all levels. We still have work to do there. Many companies do. And so that's something else that needs to be kept in mind. Now, the other thing we need to think about is STEM degrees. Familiar with the STEM degrees? Science, technology, engineering, math? Ouch. It's a big opportunity. Women will account for 57% of all bachelor's degrees awarded in 2013. So the women will outnumber men. And, the key disciplines are going to be undersupplied. STEM will account for less than 10% of all eligible degrees in the U.S. Wow. Given that STEM degrees are increasingly sought after by corporations, and actually innovation leans on those that have these degrees more and more, this is a key area of concern and opportunity for us. And the other thing that shows up is if you look at those that graduated between 2009 and 2010 with bachelor's degrees in STEM, this is what they look like in the workforce today. Very male, across computer, engineering, math, etc., and not very diverse. That's now. But the entry, what's coming, is completely flipped. It's going to be more women. And if you look, it's going to be more international as well. So what we're finding is that essentially the developed countries are producing way fewer graduates in STEM degrees than the emerging countries. Emerging economies are really generating more and more of individuals with STEM degrees, and this is significant for us because we are working to grow a part of our business that's focused on facilities management, and that requires a lot of engineers. So that matters for us at Sodexo. And we recognize that those populations are going to be increasingly diverse, and we're going to need to have leaders that are able to lead that cross-section of people. I have some statistics to share with you. The number of STEM graduates in the U.S. would need to increase by 20 to 30% between 2006 and 2016 to meet the country's projected growth in science and engineering employment alone. In China, more than 40% of all degrees awarded are STEM degrees. In the U.S., just 1 in 8 is a STEM degree. China, India, Brazil are producing more and more of the world's STEM graduates. And in China, 41% of all new university degrees awarded are in science and engineering. Comparable figures in U.S. and U.K., 13% in the U.S., 22% in the U.K. So as you can see, the world's emerging economies really are producing more. And if, in order to have the talent we need, we're going to need to tap into that talent pool. Period. It's just the reality. I'm not deeming that as good or bad, but it can feel daunting, right? If we don't feel prepared. The time is now to get prepared. We need to, in our organizations, figure out what does that mean for us? And what are the steps we need to take to be ready and to move forward? It's going to be important. So the workforce and marketplace continue to become increasingly diverse, and we recognize we need to mirror the populations we serve, and we realize that we've got to have versatile leadership in order to lead that population. What we also have recognized, and some of the data points that have helped our leaders to get on board, is that companies that are more effective at diversity and inclusion initiatives, et cetera, and that are more diverse and inclusive, outperform other companies, particularly in the NASDAQ, Standard & Poor's, Dow Jones Industrial Average, by 22 or more percentage points. Likewise, I like this chart. This is really interesting. Companies that have women, when you think about gender, in senior management teams have higher return on equity. So to the far left, you'll see there's a 10 percentage point, relative to the industry average. Those that have higher gender balanced or gender diverse leadership do outperform. Likewise, same thing for EBIT, 48% increase, and likewise stock price growth. This is beginning to grab the attention of people in the world, and say, hey, you know what, there's something to this. And at Sodexo, we looked at that and thought, this is real, but we also wanted to know how real it was specifically for us. So we commissioned a study. And what we did is we looked across a series of our units and looked at, where were the high-performing organizations within this large organization that we have, and how were they performing, and what was the makeup of those groups. And what we found is that essentially, when we had more gender-balanced leadership teams, we had greater engagement in those units, or we had more brand awareness, or we had higher retention of our clients, which is a key area of focus for us, and we had increased profitability. So that was reality for us. That's a wake-up call. The other thing we found, which was interesting, is when you had less gender balance, whether it was a lot of men or a lot of women, we had less of these things. Now, isn't that interesting? So it just panned out. At the end of the day, the gender balance, 60-40, one way or the other, really does assist with productivity and profitability, engagement, et cetera. And we were able to see that for ourselves in our organization. So changing our culture has been a journey. When I spoke to the notion of top-down, the whole notion of top-down is really about senior leadership commitment and putting things in place to ensure that we can get the work done that we need. So, increasing diversity and inclusion actually is a part of our business strategy. It's one of the key areas of focus. It's in the strategy. It's not a program that sits over there. We're proud of that because it ensures that it gets the same amount of focus as the other parts of the business. Our CEO chairs our Diversity Leadership Council, and half of his direct reports sit on that team with us, along with the lead of legal and HR, our Chief Diversity Officer as well, my boss. And they hold the executive team and all senior leadership accountable for making progress in their organizations. The market segments, which in the United States, we have 4 key areas of focus: education, healthcare, corporate services, and government services. And we have my counterpart works on the market diversity. He and his team actually partner with the leaders of the various groups, the markets, to ensure that our programming is deployed and leveraged accordingly on the ground so that we are creating that environment with all the different programs that I'll talk about in a minute. Chief Diversity Officer reports to the CEO. We have ongoing education. Our executives have been incredibly involved in this work, and I'll speak more to that, but they serve in many capacities. They're very articulate because they have been at the table for a long time now, and they understand the value. They're able to speak to it themselves for their particular area of focus. They serve the entire direct reports of our CEO are all mentors in our mentoring program. 100% of them. And they also serve as executive sponsors for the employee resource groups, and they do take specific one-on-one time to do that work. Speaking of bottom-up, the grassroots areas we have 9 employee business resource groups. Here you see them listed. And essentially they have the focus on 3 areas: serving our community, our business, and our membership, their members. What you will find is because our organization is so dispersed, I mean, think about it, we're in client sites all across the nation. And typically what a typical employee will hear is more about their unique or their specific market, their business unit, if you will, but they won't have access necessarily to all the others. The employee business resource groups and the inclusion councils, if you will, serve as a unique opportunity for all employees, any employees who want to get involved in the EBRGs can, to get connected across functions, across business units, across markets. And we have found that it actually has served as a key opportunity for increasing engagement of our employee population. So that's a big deal for us. We actually do a survey with our employee business resource groups and did find that there is an impact on retention. That people have cited being a part of employee business resource groups as helping them feel more engaged, more connected, more informed. Their business knowledge is expanded, their networks have been generated, et cetera. And in fact, the mentoring program has also done something similar, because that's another area where people come together across functions, markets, et cetera. And so what I'm going to do is share with you a little bit about our mentoring program, which is a middle out. If you think of engaging senior leaders, mid-level leaders with the populations, the objectives of our mentoring programming, it's really about ensuring we have a diverse cross-section of individuals moving up our leadership pipelines and ensuring that we're accelerating their development, and we're focused on the leadership competencies that we need to generate, but also ensuring that our upcoming leaders have a cross-section tap into the experiences and perspectives of a diverse cross-section of people, and cross-divisional, cross-functional sharing. Engagement and retention of this talent is critical for us, and helping them to recognize how they specifically are supporting the business strategy. We found that those that participate in our mentoring programs do have a much greater sense of community across businesses. They form some long-lasting relationships that they then strategically leverage for their career purposes, and that's important. We did a study of the cohort that came through in 2000, I think it was 2009 to 2011, the 2011 cohort. We asked them about their business-based outcomes as a result of participating in the IMPACT program. The IMPACT mentoring program is our high potential, senior, high-performing individuals that are coming together in mentoring relationships. And what we found is that when we put together the cost associated with their participating, traveling, being in the meetings with various mentors and other groups, to what they said was the benefit to them, we ended up with a 1 to 1.75 ratio, which is really good. You know, so there's payback. We're gaining benefits to the organization as a result of their participating in these programs. Specifically, mentees cite that they have increased their ability to think strategically. It's enhanced their leadership skills and competencies. It's also assisted them with leading change, which there's a lot of change going on, but it also has helped them with strategically leveraging their network and understanding more broadly about the broader company at large. But that's not all. I mean, mentors also cite very tangible benefits to them. Interpersonal, they say, hey, I'm much more in tune with, because these matches often are cross-race, cross-gender, cross-functional, cross-generation, right? So all of a sudden you're sitting with someone that has a whole different way of looking at the world, and they're processing something that you're talking about in a way different way than you are. It's not right or wrong, it's different. And that has helped them focus on then their interpersonal skills and the intentionality around being more focused on those things. It has also helped them with their business and industry knowledge, because they're learning more about the business too, even though they're senior leaders. They're getting a glimpse into other parts of the company. They're much more focused on employee development. They're beginning to recognize the importance of really focusing on their teams and ensuring that the upcoming populations are really getting the development they need. And they also cite that networking was a benefit. On the global front, as I mentioned, the areas of focus on global have to do with gender, disability, LGBT, and generations. I'm going to just speak briefly about our work on gender because we've done the most work there. And that, as I mentioned before, was really launched by our CEO, Michel Landau. He specifically has a passion for this work, and he launched the Sodexo Women's International Forum for Talent. He said, you know what, if we can't get senior women at the table helping be advocates for this, how's that going to work? We need the senior voice of women. I need to understand what's going on through a gender lens, and I want to hear it from my senior-most women. And so to accelerate the attainment of gender balance within Sodexo through the personal drive, commitment, and leadership of high-level leaders, he specifically called together these women. So it's a governance body for all of the gender work that's going on across our organization. And it reports directly into Michel and his executive committee. There are 31 senior leaders involved, 15 nationalities on 4 continents. It's a 5-member steering committee. We have 11 women who lead geographies. So we have 11 presidents of various countries that are women, of the 80 countries that we're in. And the area of focus, it's really about increasing women's representation at senior levels of the organization. And they have 4 objectives that their initiatives center around. And the 4 objectives include things like reaching okay, so this is Michel again. We are going to reach, he says, 25% of the top 300 leaders that are going to be women by 2015. The end of our fiscal year is August, this coming August 2015. We are right on the edge of 24% right now. So we have a bit of work to do. And we're like, go, keep going. We'll see. But he's very determined that we're going to get there because he understands the value and the importance to the business of having that perspective at the table. Also, increasing women in operations. You know, our operations roles are the roles that really are the P&L roles. And that's an area of focus and opportunity for us. Creating a culture of inclusion is the third, and the fourth is that he's looking to this senior level group of women to serve as advocates and role models in their spaces. How are they showing up? How are they involved? How are we creating gender balance as a visible topic that stays in front of us and that we are intentional about? They have 5 key areas of focus that they're working on. Work-life effectiveness, ensuring that there's connectivity across businesses and now geographies through the networking, that our HR processes are ensuring that, through talent development, talent management, we're looking at talent properly, communication, how are we ensuring the messaging is out there and showing up in relevant ways across the various geographies and countries. And leadership development. There's a lot of development work that goes on in our organization. And SWIFT has actually developed a variety of programming that is accessible to many, to all people, all employees actually. So from 2009 to 2013, you can see a little bit of from where we've come to where we are now. And the numbers aren't too bad, but at the end of the day, we still have work to do, and we acknowledge that. Of note, the executive committee, we've got 43% women at the executive committee level. That's pretty impressive. Relative to the number of other companies that I've worked in, that's pretty good. We still have work to do to get to that 25% on the global senior leadership group, the top 300. But we're still making progress in each. We've got 13 countries now that have networks, women's networks, a number of people connected in mentoring, et cetera. And they do provide various tools and guidelines. There's a cross-section of programming that this team has access to that they then deploy in their respective locations with the help of their teams on the ground. And so, now I will note in operations, that is our area of opportunity, as I mentioned before. We still do need to figure out how to get more women in the P&L roles, particularly in operations space. And we're making progress and really working on pipeline development for those purposes. But we've got a clear business case. We've got senior leadership involvement and engagement. We've got governance put in place to ensure that we are moving the dial. And so, we're making progress when it comes to gender. Metrics, anybody interested in that? Metrics. We have a scorecard, and the scorecard actually was developed very early on in our journey, and it's focused on 2 sides. And what Rohini Anand, our Chief Diversity Officer, would say is, if she had the journey to do over again, she might do one thing differently. Initially, when the scorecard was developed, and I've seen this in other companies that I've been a part of as well, it was only focused on the quantitative. What's the mix, right? But if you're going to measure what the mix is, you got to give the population opportunities to figure out how to get it fixed, or how do you boost it, and why is that important? And so the qualitative section is really about opportunities for mid-level, senior level, all management to engage and to receive credit for their engagement, whether that's participating in our diversity learning labs, participating in mentoring programs, participating in any way, shape, or form in the diversity inclusion journey. And there's very specific things that are given as examples that they can select during the course of the year to get involved. But it's focused on hiring, promotion, and retention on the quantitative side. And the qualitative side is really about activities that the leaders are engaging in. So that's why you see a lot of engagement at all levels, and HR programs and initiatives, things of that nature. And there's a really fancy formula that's rather complicated about the index that is, a combination of both quantitative and qualitative. But at the end of the day, it does help us measure what are the things that matter. How are we doing with respect to the cross-section of voices at various levels of the organization? And how are we doing with helping ensure that our leaders are engaged in understanding what this means for them? And there's benefit for participating in this because leaders are held accountable. If they don't follow through on their scorecard objectives and goals, everyone has them, they leave 15% of their bonus on the table. Ouch. But if they do, if they're successful, and in most instances they are, they receive that, whether the company is performing or not. That's a high level of commitment. Even when the regular bonuses aren't being paid out, the diversity bonus will. So that is a very, very strong commitment on behalf of Sodexo to ensure that we continue to move the dial on this work. And outcomes, finally. So where we are today, we've had a lot of success in a variety of places. One of the tasks that my team has the great pleasure of doing is fill out all these ad nauseum surveys. Anybody done these surveys? Anybody? Man, it's a lot of work, right? These surveys are like tedious, lots and lots of data they ask for. But you know what? They make us better. They keep us focused. They help us to understand what does best practice look like, what's emerging, what's going on. We don't want to just be we want to be above. We want to keep raising the bar. But we can't raise the bar if we don't know what it is, and so it just keeps us honest. It keeps us focused on what are the right things we need to be focusing on. And we've been very fortunate to really get a number of notoriety in a variety of places over time because of our efforts. And we're the only company that has been either number 1 or number 2 for the last 5 years on the Diversity Inc. Top 50 companies. And we're very proud of that. So, Catalyst Award, I mentioned to you before, that's the organization that does research on women in leadership. In 2012, we were very fortunate to have been a recipient of this very prestigious award. And essentially, they focus on, and they called out these 4 areas. How are we connected to the strategy? That's a critical success factor. Leadership commitment, another one. Top down, bottom up, middle out. How do we get involvement at all levels of the organization, and measurement and accountability? These are the things we were just talking about today. So the overall keys to success, at the end of the day, we would say senior leadership commitment is critical. Commitment and involvement, ensuring that there's oversight over the strategy and progress, and that we not only do we adjust when things aren't working, but we also need to celebrate when they are. Sometimes it's like, let's celebrate. Let's celebrate the wins. It's important as adjusting. Top down, middle out, bottom up. How do we have distributed leadership and ensure that we do ongoing benchmarking to understand what is going on out there and how do we raise the bar next time? Connection to our business case. How do we ensure that we are focusing our efforts on fueling the business strategy and really making the difference for our clients and customers? That's the end game. What is quality of life? What does that look like for our clients? What does that look like for our customers? How are we vigilant in that understanding and operationalizing that? And measurement and accountability. How do we get really laser focused on the things we need to do and the outcomes we seek to get so that we know how we're doing? Start small. Start small if you haven't already. Pick 1 or 2 things that matter the most and work that thing until you're ready to add something else. That's what's important, and that's what really has made a difference for us. And at the end of the day, the other thing, if creating a diverse and inclusive work environment is about harnessing the full power of collective wisdom in your organization, your engagement scores tell you something, right? And what we found is that this year, the diversity questions actually serve as the number 1 driver for engagement in our organization. That's big for us. 90% of managers versus 83%, we do this survey every 2 years, say that their individual differences are valued at Sodexo. Diversity is not only the highest rating engagement driver, 83% for manager, is also the largest increase from 2012. So it's getting out there. We continue to grow the effort. It's touching more and more people, more and more involvement, and it generates good energy. It generates well-being for those in our organization. And we've, our other outcomes, yes. Since we launched this process, our workforce overall has grown 23% and 10% minorities and women respectively. Or did I do that wrong? 23%, yeah, minorities and 10% women overall. We've had growth in the overall populations. And in senior roles, we've had quite a, as you can see, quite a change as well. So, we're getting those perspectives at the table, and they're making a difference. And, while it hasn't been a simple journey, and it is somewhat complex because we have lots of moving parts, I'm so proud to be a part of Sodexo and all the good work that we get to do. And I also am so gratified that we get to work with the clients that we get to work with, and helping them create that diverse and inclusive work environment as well. How do we ensure that we are creating healthy environments for not only our employees, but for those that we're serving every day? So that's our story. I'm sticking with it. And that's all I have. Okay? Thank you.
At this time, we will be taking questions, so we'll have a microphone right back here, and I'll head back into this corner.
Questions, comments? What are your thoughts out there? Don't be shy. We have one right here, and one over here, one over there. There's two right in here somewhere. Okay.
First of all, I'd like to say I'm glad I'm a woman and I'm glad I'm a Latina.
All righty.
Okay.
How about that?
Because you say in the workforce, what is it? All those numbers that you gave, 40%, 60%, 80%, that's great.
Yep.
So we should be looking forward to, in Iowa, seeing more of people like me.
Yeah. It's showing up everywhere, right? I mean,
Yeah, well, I
yeah.
grew up in Chicago.
Oh, okay. It's
You
all
know,
relative.
to implement diversity was not a question, it was already there.
Correct.
But I do have to say that, in this arena, when you're talking about for-profit organizations, it also works in the nonprofits.
Absolutely.
And because it's not what you see out there as the people that you serve, but you should mirror what you serve.
Yes.
Because if you're not, you're in big trouble.
And I will say that we do have, thank you so much for your comments. Let's give her a round. And that just brings something to mind. The intentionality around which we operate, one of my counterparts is Lourdes Diaz. And she is our VP of External Relations for Diversity. And so she's very focused on our nonprofit partnerships and community relations and ensuring that we're an active part of the environments that we're serving, and not just the clients, but also, where we reside. How are things going? How are we a part of making things better where it needs to be? How are we showing up as a good corporate citizen? So thank you for that. Yes. Here. Mm-hmm.
I will follow her with saying, I'm proud to be an Italian woman with multiple disabilities.
All righty then.
And thank you so much. You're incredible, and this was incredible too.
Oh, thank you.
But how do you determine your measures of success when you obviously, with diversity, have so many differences around values?
Well, one of the tricky things, well, sometimes it's not so tricky. There's only so many things you can measure, right? And so we that's kind of the deal. At the end of the day, it's like, what can you get your hands on that help you understand the movement and what movement matters, right? So, while we're able to track information pertaining to gender, race, generations, age, disability in some instances, and we're actually trying to work processes so that we have more accurate data around disability. Anybody else working on that? Yeah, veteran status in the United States. Those are the things, right? I mean, so we know, but we also know that there are certain things, opportunities, operations in particular, where we have unique opportunities, and those are really clear. So we focus on those, and as other things surface to us, and we get input from our employee resource groups, about things that we could be focusing on differently. Our disability group actually has been very helpful in terms of our thinking through our disability strategy that we're generating right now. They're at the table with us, creating that. So, we take in information through our engagement surveys, both for our EBRGs as well as the all-employee surveys. We slice and dice that bad boy ad nauseum to understand what the various groups are experiencing, and if there's like significant changes, that informs the work we do. What's coming down in terms of regulations. Anybody familiar with the OFCCP regulations? Hello? Whee! It's a whole nother body of work that, there are things we have to put in place as government contractors. So we have a variety of things that inform what we're trying to accomplish. But at the end of the day, if our efforts are not fueling our business objectives, we're not doing the right things. So we're always tying back what we do to how Sodexo's business objectives need to move forward. How is it what we're doing is fueling those things? And that's what informs the most. Does that help? Uh-huh.
Hello.
Oh, hello.
How are you today?
Good, and you?
I'm wonderful.
Good.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
You talked a lot about, again, the work that you're doing inside, which gets into kind of the talent management and people living in different places. And I would assume that you also have many of your leaders moving to different locations. And so I want to talk a little bit about kind of from a corporate citizen perspective.
Sure.
In essence, what's happening outside of your company, or in essence within the communities that you're living in. Do you have any programs or projects that in essence help your leaders when it comes to transitioning to communities that may be less diverse, or communities that as far as they need help when it comes to diversity? So in other words, do you collaborate and partner with the companies that you work with or other organizations in order to expand and evangelize diversity outside of your workplace?
Outside of the workplace, is that right?
Outside of the workplace.
Yeah. So there's two things, I just want to make sure I'm answering the right question. So there's two things I'm kind of hearing. One is, as our leaders are transitioning into new spaces that are quite different than what they're used to, how are we preparing them?
Yes, but I want to focus it more on as they are transferring to places
Yes.
where the diversity within the company is different than the diversity within the community.
Okay.
Right, so in essence, they come to work, but they have to be in a place where they can live and play. And so what is your role, or what role do you play as corporate citizens to help other companies in areas that you live in when it comes to diversity and be more accepting?
Yeah.
and inclusive?
Okay, I'm with you. Thank you. So that goes back to our grassroots efforts, okay? And then those are the things that are going on the ground. We have what are called ambassadors, and we have an inclusion council that really is about providing tools and resources and connectivity into our office and into our employee business resource groups and others that actually work on the ground in the units, okay? And that assist with how do we, help in that space in terms of showing up with our diverse and inclusive efforts. One of the things that our employee business resource groups have been doing, and what we've been finding is really effective, is that they've been actually partnering with their counterpart employee business resource groups in the communities and or in the organizations, the clients that we're serving. So we're finding a lot of that bridging going on. That is helping us to really increase the dialogue around what the opportunity areas are. We share our learnings and things, they share their learnings with us. It's kind of a collaborative effort. I know in Minneapolis, so I'll give you an example, a specific example. In Minneapolis, the Latino populations, all of the employee resource groups, Latino resource groups would come together quarterly. You know, they'd have a gathering, and they would have like a day or half day, sometimes happy hour. It varied, but they did provide opportunities for connectivity, to have dialogue about their community and how things are going and what are opportunities. And from those things, sometimes come other formal things that show up. You know, like, oh, okay, we've got 12 different companies in the Twin Cities that have networks. And we've got people who are coming in from out of Minneapolis that are landing in a space that's really different. And what about their family? And so they actually came together and figured out, oh, let's together figure out a way to be a network for the family. Because you know what? If I'm going to retain my Latino brothers and sisters, their family matters a lot. So let's make sure, and that was the conversation. How do we make sure we have access, that we create community here in a space where that's really important? So that's one example. I don't know if that helps a little bit. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Hi. Also, woman and Latina. Very proud of it.
Fantastic.
Just a little bit of information. I am a parent of the Waukee Community Schools.
Okay.
We started the conversation on diversity in 2010 with just a little group of parents, immigration lawyers, people that do diversity in town.
Yeah.
After that, in 2011, a diversity committee was created. I have a few fellows with me. My question to you is, it's pretty different to work diversity in a company than in a school.
Yes, it is.
Especially when you have a district that has been historically very Iowan or pretty Caucasian,
Yep.
and you see an impact of people moving to the West Des Moines, Waukee area, which are different races, different religions. What would your tip, your advice be to be more efficient, to get deeper, especially when you consider that for some parents, it's not my case and my daughter, of course, for other parents, they want to blend in.
Yeah.
They don't want to say, I'm Hispanic, I'm Asian, I don't eat pork
Yeah.
because I'm Muslim or a Jew.
Right.
What would your suggestion be, your tip, your advice, so with this small group, we go deeper down?
Whew. Well, now. Well, that's all right. That's okay. Well, actually, having lived 26 years in Minneapolis, having raised, I now have a 23-year-old son who grew up in Eden Prairie, Minnesota. Yeah. I have served, I cannot tell you on how many diversity committees in Minnesota, as I call it. And, you know, and I've also served, and because I worked in the diversity field, I've been asked to help guide and discuss with the committees in Eden Prairie, in the Eden Prairie school systems. And they struggle with the same kinds of things. And I think part of it is about making it okay to talk about that it just, difference just is. It's not right or wrong. And making that conversation okay to have. That was one thing. The other thing was, because once you have that conversation, and if you can get to that place, you also can get to a place where you can say, you know, here's my reality. The reality is that when my son goes out with his friends, who are usually not black, and they're hanging out at the mall, I have to say to him, Nicholas, if anything goes down, you're going to jail. They're not. Because that is, the statistics prove it in Minneapolis. That was the reality there. So, if anything smells like it's going to go down, get out. Call me up. But I mean, that's a reality. And there were certain incidents that would happen with teachers that I told my story, and it has to be okay for stories to surface. What are the realities that are taking place? in a non-judgmental way. But, I mean, some of these things hurt, and that just is. I wasn't pointing fingers, but just to say, hey, gee, there's got to be a better way here. So I think being an inquiry is a big part of it, in a non-judgmental way, creating a space where you can be together in that. And look at what's going on with the graduation rates, what's going on with this test scores. Look at data. What's your data telling you? That was the other thing. When I started, we started like really dissecting what was going on in the school. Data doesn't lie. You can't, and it's like, okay, well, something's broke here. We have a top achieving school system. Minneapolis school systems are second to the bottom when it comes to the achievement gap for African Americans in the nation. High achieving school system for everybody else. How does this work? So let's peel it back. Let's understand it and recognize that and it's complicated. It's really complicated. There's politics, there's unions, it's very complicated. But if you can at least start with where are the opportunities of greatest concern, and there's data associated with it, creating a safe space to have a dialogue. And that means it's not a big space like this. We had little group meetings. We had lots of little group meetings. And they started to surface the themes that were coming forward when we asked people what's on their mind. Those themes informed the work then that got done. So hopefully that's helpful. Mm-hmm.
Last one? Is this?
You're on.
Okay. My name is Clement Wilcox, and I own an organization that helps American companies to attract more Latinos. And since we are so proud, I am proud of being a woman, Hispanic, and engineer.
All right, how about that? Woo-hoo!
My question comes, we see all these STEM projects and all these graduation projects
Yes.
that are long-term.
Yeah.
But we have people here already with degrees from Latin America. They cannot make it because the immigration law doesn't allow.
Yeah.
We have kids growing up here that are going to school and can be in the STEM fields, but the immigration doesn't allow. What is Sodexo, a company with such power, doing to change that?
That's a good question. Boy, I wish Michael Montalongo was here right now. Michael Montalongo is our, he's on the executive team, and he has oversight over our government services and community types of relations strategy. And that's an area that in my 1 year, 2 months, I only know a little bit about. So my answer to you, unfortunately, is going to be I'm not exactly clear on what we're doing. I know that we have an office that focuses on these things, but I don't have the prescriptive answer for you. But if I could give you my card, I'm happy to share with you what I find out, if that's okay. That's just honest. Cool. Darn, I hate answering. Can we do one more? He's coming. Oh, there's somebody back here, one here. Okay. Yes.
Hi, I'm the executive director of a Latina leadership development program here in Des Moines. And our women have a variety of backgrounds, from engineering to statistics to business administration. And we're always looking for examples of companies that value women, value diversity, and have opportunities for a variety of backgrounds in education.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious what the scene is like for Sodexo here locally, to see if there might be some kind of partnership opportunity in the future between the leadership program and the company.
Ah. Oh, where'd you go? I'm looking at you. I have Sodexo friends in the audience. Can we? Hello, hello, Sodexo people. Thank you for coming. And I'm wondering if any of you can help me. Can you help me with an answer in terms of like locally, any types of connectivity that we have?
I'm Carla Carlson, and I'm a district manager for Sodexo in the state of Iowa. So if you want to touch base with me afterwards, we are local. We have businesses in the Des Moines area, and we would love to talk to you because we are always looking for good talent. So just come and look me up afterwards. I'll give you my card and give you a couple of connections that you can talk with. Yep.
All right, thank you. Okay.
Well, we certainly heard a wonderful presentation from a great diversity champion. Can we give her a great Iowa thank you?
Thank you very much.
I know it's not a Grammy, I'm sorry, but you already have one. On behalf of the Greater Des Moines Partnership and our Diversity Council, Sandy, thank you so much for joining us today. And I want to just tell the audience that we've had some wonderful kind of preliminary conversations with Sandy leading to her agreeing to come and speak today. And also, she wanted to get kind of the flavor of our community, and certainly she values her Sodexo partners and relationships here. So this wasn't just a fly in, do my thing, and then turn around and fly out. She really wanted to learn about us and what we're doing. So thank you, Sandy, for all of your information and sharing with the marvelous story of Sodexo.
It was my honor. Thank you very much.
And many of you asked such wonderful questions that we, as a committee, are so pleased that this year we are able to continue this conversation. Following a break, immediately following my remarks, we will come back and announce our breakout sessions that will include some of the topics that some of you raised. So that's very exciting that we can continue. I just, on a housekeeping note, want to ask the Partnership Diversity Council members and our committee, if you would join me over to the side here. We'll take a photo with Sandy before she leaves. So with that, anything else, Nathan, that I need to announce?
I'm just going to put up the breakouts so everybody knows where to go. See if I can get it up here. As long as it doesn't change.
So it looks like we have a 15-minute break, and then, very good. And while we come back to be introduced to the breakout sessions from the...
Leave right from here. Opportunity will be in this room.
Okay.
Being in Iowa is in BC, which will be in this corner, and actually in DE is going to be Global Talent Development, which will be back in this corner. So just go out. The restrooms are around that corner as well. Refresh your coffee, refresh yourself if you want some donuts or fresh fruit. That should be out there as well. What? Yep, they're going to introduce them.
Okay.
Yep.